Now I call Christian Loeben. Please come in. Christian will present a communication title entitled How a Close Look at the Many Boxes and Shabtis from Tutankhamun's tomb Can Contribute to Understanding its Archaeology. So Christian studied Egyptology and art history, including Islamic art and Hebrew at the Freie University of Berlin. His MBA thesis was in 1985 at his university, was on inscribed boxes and chests from the tomb of Tutankhamun. So currently is assistant professor for Egyptology at University of Humboldt, which the last 2 semesters he was replacing vacant full professorship of Egyptology. He has a very extensive curriculum, so I will give him the floor first, just to name it. Lately, has been work with many exhibitions, for example, for Musée du Louvre in Paris in 2021 and 22, in a similar committee for also in Antiken Museum Basel und Sammlung Ludwig. He has been invited member of international vetting committees for the following art fairs: BAF in Basel and Brussels, and BRAFA in Brussels, and also the FAF in Maastricht and Bourgogne Travel Show. So please, Christian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the organizers and especially my friend, dear friend Rogerio, for letting me join this conference at the very last minute, but I hope you won't regret it, because it was a special wish to participate in a conference which is called Tutankhamun and Carter, as you will see in the end. So I always have a little missionary prelude to my lectures, which is because my museum is very little known, and it's called Museum August Kestner in Hannover, in Germany, called after this gentleman, August Kestner, who was ambassador of the Kingdom of Hanover in Rome, where he met personally this guy, which is Jean-François Champollion. It's a drawing by his hand. He learned hieroglyphs from him, and thus is the first German to ever have learned the correct system of hieroglyphs, because there was a German alternative at that time. Later he met this gentleman in Rome, also a drawing by Kestner, which is Lepsius, Karl Richard Lepsius, the founding father of German Egyptology, and he is important for our conference because he's the discoverer of the Amarna period. Kestner had a collection in Rome, which he bequested to his city, native city in Hanover, which built a museum for him. This building was partly destroyed in the war and considered really ugly. For this reason, they changed it into what it is now. So it's now very beautiful, but inside you have still the old facade preserved. In 1935, there was the first important additions to the collection of Egyptian art, and we bought in Munich, oops, that will come later. Oops, sorry. Okay, then there's a little mixed in pictures. That we are linked to Tutankhamun is the case because my predecessor, Professor Peter Munro, who was very much interested in the Amarna period, and he bought the head, which I have mentioned already in the discussion. He had the chance of bringing the Tutankhamun exhibition in the 1980s among the 5 German cities also to Hanover, where it was visited within 2 months by 430,000 people. So it is the most enormous success for an Egyptian exhibition in Hanover. In 1935, we bought this vessel, and thanks to the inventory card, we know that it came from the collection of, it's written here, of Earl Carnarvon. So we are very happy to be linked to the Earl of Carnarvon thanks to this Nagada 1 vessel. And we bought this vessel, which is really fascinating because it was supposed to be destroyed during the war, and it came back to the museum just last year. And we are happy to have that too, because the same thing, it comes from the collection of Carnarvon. Now, there is this gentleman here, the Baron Friedrich Wilhelm von Bissing, and we bought also in 1935 the bulk of his private collection. And with the private collection, we came into possession of objects which Howard Carter himself has excavated in the Valley of the Kings when he discovered and cleared Tomb Cave. And he didn't discover it, he cleared it, KV 42. And in this tomb, there was a reburial of the royal vet nurse, Senet Nye. She's the vet nurse of Amenhotep II, and we have 2 canopic jars of the set of 4, and we have, by the way, very nice ones with the name of the protector's deity on the head, and we have 2 dummy vessels. Unfortunately, we used to have 6 more, but they are a loss of post-war. Post-war. When the exhibition, which I mentioned, was in Germany in the 1980s, the big exhibition, which before was in the States and Canada, I was a school kid at that time and helped at the exhibition. And I profited greatly from the very kind invitation of the Egyptian colleagues accompanying the exhibition, because they allowed me, as I said, as a school kid, to look inside all of everything in the exhibition which had a lid. So they showed me everything inside. They opened every lid for me. And that was the reason why, after having studied Egyptology at the Freie Universität in Berlin, I wrote my master thesis on the boxes, because I was one of the few people who have actually looked inside these boxes, because all the other work I did was only possible in the museum in Cairo through the glass. And while studying Egyptology in Berlin, I also gave a seminar talk in a seminar on Tutankhamun on the shabtis, and that's the reason why I will talk to you now on shabtis and on boxes. And as you understand, this is a long, long time ago that I did this work. That explains why you will see pictures of not great quality, because they are really old and they have been rephotographed from slides. And I only dare to address an audience at this stimulating conference on these old ancient research, because none of this has yet been published. So for this reason, I dare to tell you something about it. So let's go to the archaeology of Tomb KV 42. I start with the shabtis, and you all know that they are in great quantity. Actually, it's the biggest object quantity in the tomb, and you know, there were 413. We heard that already, in different quality and so on. But looking at them very closely, there is 7 figures out of these 416 which are very, very peculiar. They are these here, of which I have a color photo. There are 7 of them. And they are the only ones in the tomb which are inscribed in vertical lines. And they are the only ones coming from the tomb which do not bear the name of Tutankhamun. Which is a problem because, as you will see, I don't know if the 7 were originally only 7 or if they were more. Because, unfortunately, when dealing with the shabtis, you encounter an enormous problem. The problem is that one of the objects is not where it should be, in Cairo. It is in the Louvre in Paris. Nobody knows how and when it disappeared from the tomb. It resurfaced at the Louvre in the 1960s. So the big problem was when I was really going very thoroughly through the archives in Oxford. That was at a time when nothing was online. You didn't even know the word online at that time. So you went to Oxford, you looked at everything, and it was impossible to say if this number, 416, included the disappeared shabti in the Louvre or did not include. No way to say. So, sorry, we don't know the correct number of shabtis from the tomb of Tutankhamun. And this is particularly bad because the 7 which are anonymous, which don't bear the name of the king, I am convinced were added to the number of shabtis when a committee bringing all the objects gathered in front of the tomb in storage areas did a last count of the shabtis and realized, oh, we need a certain number. And you know, the ideal number is said to be 365 per day, then 36 or 37 for every 10 workmen, another 3 or 4 for the overseers. So there is this ideal number, but we don't know it. From the tomb of Tutankhamun, we don't know it. And unfortunately, as I said, the shabti bearing no name of Tutankhamun, who knows if there weren't more than that, and they have, again, disappeared. And that is very sad. So no idea what the exact number is, because with the shabtis, we know that there's something specifically going on. It's wonderful to see that they have been distributed in the tomb, clustering in this corner and clustering in the annex. It's approximately half of the number, whatever original number it was. It's approximately half. And that is great because with this distance, you can assume that they were about to be on the 2 sides of the deceased king, of the mummy. And this is what we know of later burials, that the minimum number of shabti, if you have an ideal minimal burial, are 2 shabtis, and they should be placed to the right and to the left of the body of the deceased. So this is the case in Tutankhamun. And there's a very special one, which is if you go into this corner, because right at the entrance to the annex, you see there is a single shabti staying in this corner, which is again to the left side of the body of the king, and that has a single equivalent on the other side of the tomb too. So there are the 2 shabtis flanking the body of the king. So this one is here, and the other one is over there. We have seen that photo already a couple of times. And this is a shabti which is standing just like the other. This is this here. But you will be surprised what it contains. It's a lying shabti. It's a shabti on a bier. The problem is that a lot of Egyptologists who have written even recently on the tomb of Tutankhamun don't call this a shabti, which is unfortunate because it is a shabti. First of all, the group of shabti is known, a figure lying on a beard. Secondly, the shabti is a gift by a private individual, like these which have the name, here it's Nachtmin, underneath the feet of the shabti, and with the shabti on the beard, it is the treasurer Maya who has given this object to his master, Tutankhamun. So there are already several indications that it is a shabti, and there is a third one, because within the box were discovered miniature implements. So the implements which the shabtis need to work on the fields. They were produced individually and they were given to the shabti. I now choose a photo which is very peculiar. Somebody in the audience knows it very well because this, oops, sorry, too quick. this implement from the tomb of Tutankhamun is again not where objects from the tomb of Tutankhamun should be, but this implement is in Brussels. And we know why, because on the visit of Queen Elizabeth of the Belgians at the tomb of Tutankhamun, Howard Carter gave her, as a memory of her visit to the tomb, he gave her a shabti implement. So the number, which is in the literature, of 1,866 implements for shabtis in the tomb of Tutankhamun is again one of which I don't know, does it include the one in Brussels or does it not include the one in Brussels? So also with the implements, we can't give the exact number. It's a catastrophe. By the way, as I showed, that is the catalogue of the Tutankhamun exhibition in Liège, in which this implement is published. And there's another one of which I can't say, maybe it comes from the tomb of Tutankhamun. That would be the second one somewhere else, and that is in Hannover at the Museum August Kestner. So it's again an implement, and it came to the museum again with the collection from Bissing. And of him, we also know that he was friends with a lot of Egyptologists, and maybe he has been given also a little implement from the tomb of Tutankhamun. I am still researching this, so I can't give you the last clue on that one. But you see, numbers, we should know everything about the tomb of Tutankhamun concerning numbers, but we can't. By the way, the two birds, there's a lot of discussion which they represent, and I'm convinced they are the two bars of Osiris and bar of Re who meet in Mendes. So let's move on to the boxes and chests from the tomb of Tutankhamun. There are 73 objects which can fall into this category. All boxes in which we know anywhere in the world which bear the name of Tutankhamun are from the tomb of Tutankhamun. However, among the boxes or elements of boxes in the tomb of Tutankhamun, we have also other names, and we have seen in Nozumo's wonderful lecture already that a lid of a box plays a very important role, because it's not only mentioning Tutankhamun as we have seen, and one example is this one here, Neferu-Ra, one of the daughters of Akhenaten. She has a little lid from a box, and that was discovered in the tomb. Material is not always wood. You have reed here, and you have wonderful examples where reed is imitated. And as this example, if you look very carefully at the box, you will see really absolutely wonderful masterworks. I will just point out the little golden nails here, and they have granulation decor. And I studied the types, so you have nails without granulation, this type of granulation, this type of granulation, and this type of granulation. And you see how they are distributed on the sides of the box, or for example, the veneer is two different types distributed on this object. So the boxes, again, come in a cluster, just like the shabtis. And we have seen this view from the tomb already, the northeast corner of the treasury. And you see that boxes can be apparently reused to something what they are not supposed to have been originally. And the best example is this box here, because it becomes a coffin for the two mummified fetuses of Tutankhamun. In the contrary to the very nice look and of order in the treasury, everybody would agree that on the other end of the tomb in the annex, it looks chaotic. However, we have really not far from each other, we have lit and box. For example, this is the box to which this lid belongs. This is the box to which this lid belongs. So in the end, it was possible to put every lid, almost every lid, on every box. So there was nothing lost or destroyed. So as I said, the chaos in the annex, which I will explain later, is contradictory to the order in the, oops, did I go too quickly? Oops. The order in the treasury, where, for example, these boxes are nicely arranged. We have seen that already in the lecture earlier. And the cartouche-shaped box, which I just showed, is this one. And it's nice to see here inside. We don't only have the regalia of the king, which would fit nicely into a cartouche-shaped box, but we have also these mirror cases, or one of the two mirror cases. And here I give you the first of my few examples, but there are zillions, where Carter says that the box exists, but the mirror has been stolen. And he shows, and that's the one we've seen, and there's another one, and with both, we know no mirror has been found in the tomb, so Carter says it has been stolen by the robbers. But in both cases, this is not necessary, because in spite of the fact that they have the shape of a mirror, they are a mirror by themselves, because if you open the lid of this box, you would find the upper part shielded with silver. So it is in reality, you open the box, you turn the lid aside, and you have the mirror. You don't need a mirror inside. And that is why this box would function like a forerunner of the modern compact, where ladies have a little box with cosmetic products, and they open the lid, and it is the mirror. So Tutankhamun had already a compact. So boxes with the cartouches are wonderful because they are the best way of sending objects to, for example, the treasury of a temple. And you see boxes with the name of the king on top are very perfect because the sender of the presence is very well attested. I give you an example of a box of which we can say that it was certainly used during the lifetime of the king or in the court, because these one or two, I don't recall actually, one or two of the legs has been broken and has been repaired in antiquity, so it's likely to have been used. By the way, it's very nicely produced, how the elements are put together, and it has a lid which is hinged, which is very nice. And then there is, for example, this box, which is also a little masterpiece, which actually be compared with our sewing box, because it's one box within you have a box of two boxes which you can move above, so you have several compartments, and it looks very, very much like a modern sewing box. And this is one where you also have hinges for the lid, and that's the reason why the knob is not a knob to bind cords around and to seal it, but it's a moving knob. And only if the sign here on the top, the Ang sign, faces the front, then you can open the lid. If the sign faces the side, you cannot open the lid. So a nice little detail. So we now come to a box which was discovered in the tomb in the treasury with a separate box and the lid. And I hope you all agree that the only original contents of this box could have been a wig. It's a wig box. You have this knob and you put a wig on top. So now this box has a hieratic docket on the lid. And hieratic dockets are a very important argument for Carter to say many things have been stolen, taken away, and so on. Because on this box, the docket on the lid says it contains shabtis. However, shabtis were not found in it. And that's the reason why Carter says, you know, they write down there are shabtis in it, there aren't shabtis in it, so they've been stolen, or they did horrible things to the shabtis. Unfortunately, the docket on this lid you can't read very well, but just to give you an impression how these dockets look, I took the semi-round box as an example. It always says something which I will quote from a different box. By the way, this round box, as we all know, has been usurped. It's from a different burial, and you can see this usurpation very well with the knob here and the stripes of inscription. And if you look very carefully, the whole label here has been recut to be then reinscribed with the new cartouches. By the way, this box has these wonderful handles, metal handles, and it is not the only one, because these have them, for example, and there is one which has them two here present in the antechamber. The interesting thing is that on this box there is also a hieratic docket, and that would read, and I quote from the Egyptian, it would read the Chen feet, whatever that is, the Chen feet of His Majesty, life, prosperity, health, while he was still a crown prince. What is in it? Copper razors, copper smoothers, ewers, linen. By the way, all of this was not found in the box, again. So it is interesting to see that the term Chen feet, which in the Dictionary of Egyptian Language is translated as bag, so a linen bag which you carry on your back. However, apparently we must translate it in a different way. The term Chen feet is apparently a carrying box, and we have those represented very well in the, for example, in the tomb of Ramose, but as well too, you have guys on a carrying pole and suspended boxes. So Chen feet is a new term, new translation, carrying box or suspended box. So we learn also lexicography from the tomb of Tutankhamun. A very strange object is this one. I guess most of you, even those who are interested in the tomb of Tutankhamun, have not seen it. It was always very hidden. It's more a shrine than a box, you would all agree, because it has a shrine lid and it has a sledge. And the interesting thing with this object is that the current surface is white, but if you look very carefully, you will find that the original painting of this object has been yellow. And yellow is always a color to imitate gold, so you can actually compare to the gold shrine, only that it is very slender. And again, with this object, you find it, for example, represented these slender, oh, they're very terrible pictures, so I get rid of this. They do exist in representations as well. However, this is how it looks. There is an off-centered hole in the base of this shrine, and Carter says that in this thing there was definitely a royal cubit measurement, because from gold, certainly, because we are in the tomb of Tutankhamun, and it was stolen because we didn't find a cubic measuring rod in the tomb. However, if you look how cubit measures look in the cut, there are examples here, so all three possible forms would not correspond to a round hole. I have a little suggestion to do. Maybe originally in this shrine was the Abba or cherub scepter, which Nozumu has shown us already, I think, in your lecture, with which the king consecrates objects to the gods. A very fascinating object when it comes to caskets is the alabaster casket. Number 40, also found in the antechamber. There is a very nice quote of Carter, inventory card, what was in it. Unfortunately, there aren't photos. He says, filled almost to the top with first a simple thickness of cloth and then a mass of decayed hair, probably horsehair. At corners, 2 round balls of hair covered with cloth and tied around below ball. Underneath the mess got solider and solider till it ended in a hard, resinous mass. Unfortunately, he took it out all, and nobody knows where it is, unfortunately. Because I'm convinced to the following. This box, and luckily I was very happy to confirm it recently at the Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo, where the conservators showed me the object in question, because this alabaster casket is not alone. It belongs into a box, which is this one here. Again, the same corner of the entrance to the annex. And this is actually also, again, more a shrine than a box. First of all, it has been painted yellow, again, imitation of gold. And secondly, as you see very well with the lid, it is in the shape of the pernu, as is, for example, one of the shrines of Tutankhamun, as you all know, here the shrine in the form of pernu, and they are gilded. So it's evident when looking inside this box, as I did in Cairo recently, that the feet of the alabaster casket fit into holes. So it's absolutely evident that is the container of the alabaster casket. So we have a shrine around an alabaster object. That recalls something, because we have a big alabaster object, this one here, and as you all know, it is in a gilded shrine. There, the canopic of Tutankhamun, of which you all know that they are the lids, and underneath the lids were the little miniature coffins. So we have the same situation. We have a gilded shrine, in this case imitating gold, and we have an alabaster object, an alabaster vessel inside. Now I'm convinced if what was in it, the horsehair, was not horsehair, but it was, as we all know, underneath the mask of Tutankhamun, we had his skull, and we have seen that picture already. And as Nozumo already said, that this is a skull which has been shaven off the hair. So I'm convinced that the hair inside the alabaster casket has originally been the hair of Tutankhamun and not horsehair. Unfortunately, we can't verify it because the contents is maybe somewhere, will be rediscovered somewhere. However, the alabaster casket has been returned into what we know very well, an alabaster canopic jar, kind of. So the last box I show you is the most beautiful one, number 32. This is a type of box with the gable lid and the carrying pole. We know they are known already from the Old Kingdom, Tomb of Mereruka, where guys carry it. And it's said that the contents of this type of box is always linen. Needless to mention, there was no linen in it, not at all. By the way, it's also very well fashioned. I'm convinced it's the only box which was made for the burial of Tutankhamun. All the other boxes were maybe in use in the palace or anywhere else already. This not, because it's so well done. You know, the carrying poles, you can put them in these metal loops, and to know exactly which carrying pole would fit into the exact corresponding loops, they made little strokes 1 stroke to 4 strokes, and they reappear on the pole. So the socket and the pole can very easily be matched together. So perfect thing. And secondly, it is, there you can see the distribution of the strokes underneath the box, and it's the only box which has a lot of religious context in its texts, so I don't go into detail. So I'm convinced the only box which was really fashioned for the burial of Tutankhamun. Also the front scene is a wonderful composition. By the way, I think it shows Tutankhamun giving offerings to the deified Osiris Tutankhamun, and it's a wonderful composition with the squares. They are the same height here, but they are not the same height here because he's on a Ma'at base. However, they gain the extra square in the upper part of Osiris and not in the opposite representation. So we look, what was the contents of this peculiar box? Luckily, there's a photo, not in Oxford in this case, but only at the Metropolitan. It's lacking in Oxford. And Carter describes the contents as these, the contents, were scattered loosely in bottom of box and had obviously nothing to do with original contents. Consisted of a number of alabaster calcite vases of various shapes, 2 serpentine vases, 3 glaze vases, 7 small pottery dishes, remains of 2 more ostrich feathers, 4 hard limestone paint grinding slabs, and 7 stone knives, a number of lumps of raisin, etc. By the way, the hand list, you all know the hand list, is even more detailed because it mentions also 4 incense balls and a quantity of small dried fruit. Okay, we are far from linen, you see. Okay, I think the clue for the contents is the position of this box, because it is here, which is in reality very close to the door to the burial chamber, and it is obvious, in my opinion, that this box has been pulled away a bit to put this box at the very, very last moment into its position here. So we do a little side break, because this is the box here. This is the one which is out of justice. It could have not been slipped into this position at the last minute with all this rubbish up here and this box here. Luckily, we know that all of this is not the original archaeology of the tomb of Tutankhamun, but it is Howard Carter, because he broke into the doorway here, and to make nobody to get too close to his broken doorway, which he replastered and resealed. There was luckily a necropolis seal in the collection of Lord Carnarvon, which he asked him to bring along. So he resealed the door himself. And so that the plaster could dry for some weeks and nobody would look too close to this side, Carter piled up this stuff. Unfortunately, we don't know from where he got it. And, even worse, he put that box in front of it, because that would mean nobody can really get close to what he did in this corner. I know where this box originally stood, which is a famous painted box. We have seen that already. It originally stood in the way to look into the annex, which Howard Carter, Lady Evelyn, and Mays wanted to look into. Unfortunately, there was this box standing in the way. So they simply, because it's exactly the space for it, they simply took it and put it there, because it helped them to disguise their evil deeds at the entrance to the burial chamber in the night before, after the official opening. Again, back to the box 32. Here again, just in this position, I'm convinced that the contents of the box is actually all material which was used in rituals which were either done to close the shrines of Tutankhamun's tomb or to seal the door. In any case, everything they used for these rituals, they would not just throw into the Nile, they would put into this very special box and put it very close to the sealed doorway. So all of these objects, which is here, as you know. So all of these objects in the box are for ritual purpose, and it would be really nice to take them seriously. You know, just saying they are secondarily, the linen has been stolen and things like this have been thrown in, does not give archaeological justice to this find. So, by the way, in this position, it is very much comparable to the distance from the tomb, which is here, and KV 54, of which you all know that the material for the mummification of Tutankhamun has been buried. As you, oops, where is it now? Oh, it's somewhere over here. It's not indicated, I'm sorry. So I would love to conclude that with an appeal mainly to all of my Egyptology colleagues. And I call it, thanks to this conference here, Tutankhamun and Carter, I call it my Lisbon appeal. I would like my colleagues to, after 100 years, after the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun, to not believe Carter in the robbery of the tomb. I have only shown very few examples, but I looked at everything, and it's totally polemics when you read carefully under this auspices the account of Carter's books and everything he wrote in his recording cards. I'm 100% convinced there were no robbers in the tomb ever. Everything which is strange can be explained otherwise. And I'm happy to discuss many things. However, it is really my wish that I also ask my colleagues to really reassess what they think is a proof for robbers in the tomb. I'm convinced they were never there. And I'm very happy and lucky that Richard Parkinson, my dear friend in Oxford, being an Englishman, today, just some hours ago, called Howard Carter a liar. He said it in his presentation, and I would like to extend it. Don't ever believe what he writes, check it all, because many, many things can be explained otherwise. So by saying that there was a robbed tomb, just like the contents of the box, my appeal is suspecting it is a robbed tomb. And really think about it, it's not necessary. Again, we don't give the whole tomb of Tutankhamun justice. It is a complete burial, it's an unusual burial, and that makes it even more complicated because we don't have any real comparanda to show what is a rule and what is special in the tomb of Tutankhamun. So with this appeal, my Lisbon appeal, I thank you very much for your attention.